Hello, hope you're doing well. This is a redo of a talk that I delivered at TechTown a couple of months ago, in fact, TechTown in Barnsley. And Kerry has very kindly pestered me, very kindly pestered me for the last few months to redo this talk because the video that we took during the event wasn't that great. So this talk, as you can see on the slides, is digital skills, education and business, and how those three things cross over between education and business and how they all integrate together. I've got a lot of personal experience of this, and we'll get into that in a minute. And the talk that I delivered at TechTown was mainly about how we solve the digital skills crisis and some of the things that I've learned along with Nicola Tiffany from HMA, also based in Barnsley, that we've spent the last year trying to learn from Barnsley College. So this talk, I said this when I was in the room at the time because we had several other educational institutions there. This talk is not a pat on the back. Even though we're doing some really great things locally in Barnsley, there's a lot of things that we're still not doing good. When it comes to digital skills and when it comes to education, we're still struggling to integrate those two together. We're still experiencing a massive digital skills crisis, just like you are in all the rest of the towns across TechTown. And there's lots for us to improve. There's lots of ways we need to make this situation better. And in this talk, I basically talk about how we could potentially go about making some of those better, and also a starting point for an idea that I had that I think could help improve the digital skills crisis that we've got going on across the entire of Europe, it would seem. So first of all, me, you may or may not have seen me before, but this is me. So I am Craig Burgess on Twitter. I am also Craig Burgess in real life. I've spent 12 years as a designer and a developer and a marketer, particularly a web designer, and I've spent 12 years doing branding, and basically I'm a marketing guy, quote unquote. And that's what I've done for my entire career. I've spent 7 or 8 years now running my own business as well, Genius Division, and we're based in Barnsley. And for all the time that I've been running Genius Division, I've spent 8 years trying to give back to improve education. It's always been something that I've been very, very aware of. And a lot of us in the digital industry are very aware that we need to do better to integrate with education. Not just that education needs to do better to work with us as digital businesses, but also digital businesses need to do better. So I've always spent a lot of my time trying to improve that. I actually teach on a local course in Wakefield on an FDA web design course where I teach 1 or 2 units every year about web design and about design and stuff like that. So I've got quite a dual experience of this whole thing. I run my own design agency in Barnsley, and I also am a teacher. So I understand the education and the digital skills crisis, and I understand the business point of view. I understand all the views that needs to be understood, and I've been right in the thick of it for quite a long time. So that was why I got asked to kind of pull together all my information about this and how I understand the situation to be. There's several words I never hear. Whenever I go into schools, whenever I go into any kind of educational institution, be it a high school, be it a college, whatever it is, the younger people get, in fact, these are the kind of words that I never hear. I never hear young people saying, I want to work for Facebook. A lot of them don't even realise that you could potentially work for Facebook, and a lot of them don't even know that Facebook is a business that employs people and makes billions of pounds of money a year. A lot of kids genuinely don't know that, and I've experienced this first hand. We've been into high schools and we've been into primary schools, and I actually helped, along with one of the other guys at Genius Division, teach young people how to design an iPhone app. So we went into the school over a series of weeks, and I'll never forget this because it just sticks in my mind so vividly. We went in there and I asked anybody to put their hand up, what's their favourite app for their iPhone or their Android phone or whatever phone they had. And people put their hands up and people said the usual things like Facebook and like Pinterest and like Instagram and things like that. And then I said to them, do you know that you could work for these companies? Do you know that people get paid to make these apps? And they all went, no, No, I didn't know that. None of them knew that these were potential careers they could go on to do after college, after school, after high school, after primary school. None of them knew that these were potential careers. I've also never heard anybody say, I want to make a successful YouTube channel. There's people who want to be YouTubers. That's quite a popular career these days, but young people specifically, don't realise that YouTubing, being a YouTuber, is a real career. That's something you could potentially make money out of. That is a real aspiration. And partly the problem with this is it comes from education and it comes from careers. That careers don't necessarily realise that this is a real career. If a kid came up to them and they said, I want to be a successful YouTuber, the teacher would say, don't be stupid. You can never do that for a career. So there's a dual problem there. And also because parents don't understand this kind of thing too. Parents don't know that you can actually make money and make a career from being on YouTube. So when the kid comes home and they say, I want to do YouTube for a living, they just dismiss it. We're getting better at this, and we are getting better at this, but it is mainly the teachers at school that do not understand these new ways of making money, these new careers that are weird and wild and wonderful. A lot of people don't understand these still, particularly in high schools. This is mainly a business thing. I don't hear most digital businesses out there, most design agencies, most web development companies, basically the companies that need the staff that we have a massive digital skills crisis. Most of those companies are not saying lines like this. They are not helping education. They are not out there right now doing the kind of thing that I'm doing. They're not going to education and saying, how can I help? Can I come in and talk to your students? Can I pass on any knowledge? They're not going into schools and doing that kind of thing. And that is really criminal right now because we need the help from people in the industry. This is the people who school kids look up to. These are the people that when you walk into a room as an industry professional, the kids go, I want to be like that when I grow up. And if the digital businesses are not doing this, we're raising a generation of children that do not understand that these careers are a potential opportunity. And that's not right. That's sad. Because if we continue to have that problem, the digital skills gap will continue to widen. Currently, this is how I see the digital skills landscape. This is specific to the UK, by the way, more or less specific to the north of the UK, but this digital skills crisis that we're currently experiencing is widespread across the UK, is widespread across the US, it's widespread across all of the other tech town countries because I spoke to most of the people in tech town about this very issue. Every country that is in tech town right now is experiencing this issue. We have a rise in digital skills. We have a rise in digital agencies and web developers and app developers and all these kinds of people, but we don't have the people to fill the jobs. The digital landscape in the UK specifically currently looks like this. The digital economy in the UK is growing twice as fast as any other sector in the entire UK right now. There is no other sector that is growing bigger. And this is from very well-regarded organisations that are saying this. TechNation, Nesta and the Select Committee have all done studies and surveys around this issue. Our economy is growing twice as fast right now than any other economy. And I can see this growing even faster than that. I don't think this is going to be the end. I think we're going to triple. We're going to be tripling as fast. And we're going to be growing 4 times as fast and 5 times as fast in the coming years. There's more and there's different technology that is coming out every day of the week these days. I can't believe that the iPhone is 10 years old already. That has absolutely flown. And if you just take the iPhone all by itself, it generated entire new industry for people. It generated the App Store, it generated app developers. People could start making apps and selling them purely on iPhone and iPad devices, just Apple devices, and make a career out of this kind of thing. So there's lots of potential, and we don't know what new technology is coming around the corner. We can guess at some of it. Obviously, virtual reality and augmented reality are two very big issues right now. They're two very big emerging technological industries, but they've not been monetized so much yet. But that's not to say what's going to happen in the future. So we don't know what's going to happen. The digital skills landscape is forever changing because of the technology is ever changing. And this is leading to all kinds of weird and fantastic new jobs that are emerging every single day of the year. We've got YouTube people, we've got YouTubers. That is a genuine job now. We've got people who stream playing video games on things like Twitch, and they are making money and making a career from doing this kind of thing. We've got things like podcasting, where people are talking to a mic very similar to this one, and just talk to an audience and make money that way. There's people like the Joe Rogan podcast that has millions of downloads every single episode, and he has very famous people on his podcast, and he's making a lot of money from it. We've got bloggers, and blogging has been around for a long time, but now people can monetize this. People can become travel bloggers, or people can become history bloggers, or people can become any kind of blogger that they want to be and make money from it. That is a legitimate career that someone could go into if only our young people knew it existed. And then we've got vloggers, we've got video bloggers, we've got people who are uploading things to YouTube, potentially other areas, and these people are getting paid to make videos about their life, or they turn their life into a serial that people are interested in watching. A really good example of this is Gary Vaynerchuk. If you've not heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, he's basically an American businessman, and he spends every day of his life vlogging. Basically, he categorizes and documents every single day of his life, and it's fascinating to watch. Every single one of these companies right now are disrupting the skills and the technology market. Disney, Apple, Google, even people like Lego, Nike and PayPal, these are all case studies on what is happening in the tech market. Apple specifically is one of the biggest examples. They invented the iPhone, and they invented an entire new industry of app developers. Google are making new things seemingly every week, and we don't ever know where these are going to go next. Disney are buying up every single company in the world, and they're implementing fascinating technology in their Disney parks, and also they're buying media companies, and they're doing fascinating things with those. These companies, and also companies like Nike with their Nike Run technology, although Apple bought that and now that's Apple property, but even Nike are disrupting the tech market, and PayPal are disrupting the payment market, even though they've been a long since established player. These companies are doing fascinating and wide-ranging things in our tech world right now, and the digital skills are not matching it. With all that kind of stuff going on, how can we possibly hope for traditional education to keep up with any of this? How can we expect our teachers and our people whose job it is to just teach people to stand in a classroom and try and keep people updated with this? How can we possibly tell them the stuff that they need to know to keep up with this? And this struggle is real, and I've seen this firsthand. This is what's happening right now in the UK. Education specifically is struggling to migrate enough in an ever-moving target in the technology world. Technology changes so quick. The digital curriculum needs to change to match it. The digital curriculum can't change fast enough, so by the time the teachers come around to teaching the information, it is already out of date, and that's not doing anybody any favours. There's a real struggle in education to try and keep up with new technology and new job opportunities. Just like I said earlier, when I go into schools, the kids do not know that they could become an app developer. They don't know that people are making money from this kind of thing. And that's not a fault of education, it's just that technology is moving so fast that education cannot keep up, or at least traditional education. This fact shocked me. TechNation in 2016 suggested that only 1 in 3 new digital jobs are filled by university graduates. There is 2/3 of every new digital job filled by somebody else, that is not university. That is insane. We continue to say that university is the most effective path to fill the digital skills crisis, but I have observed firsthand that this is not the case. And what's more shocking about this is that the other 2/3 are being filled by the existing talent pool that is already in the digital industry. That means that there's a massive strain that is being put on existing businesses inside the digital industry. If there's 2 agencies in Barnsley, and there's quite a lot of digital agencies in Barnsley, if somebody leaves our agency and then moves down the road and goes works at another one, we're going to struggle to fill that job opportunity because the other agency down the road just took one of our employees and now we've got to go find a replacement. And all we do in that situation is usually go take someone else from another agency, and that's not good. That puts a massive strain on all the digital businesses in the sector. The education industry is not creating enough new talent, and that's largely because the education industry are not keeping up to date with the correct skills that we need in our industry. The worst bit of all this, and I've kind of alluded to this several times already, is that children are mostly unaware of the full opportunities in digital. Despite, and this is why it's most surprising, despite being massive consumers of technology, they aren't aware that they could get a job in it. And that's a real crisis. School teachers are struggling to keep up with the opportunities available to them. School teachers cannot be expected to understand the technology industry. Whilst our industry is growing twice as fast as every other industry, because of that, it's changing seemingly every week. School teachers and careers advisors cannot keep up with this change. And because of that, their information, if they've got any at all, is very out of date and outmoded. So they're unable to provide any kind of opportunity advice to their students, and all they tell their students to do is go to college, and then all college says is go to university after that. So what do we do about all of this situation? It's a big problem that we're trying to deal with, and as I said, I've spent 8 years trying to deal with this and trying to dissect it. I've been working closely in Wakefield with the course leader of the course that I teach on, and he's suggested the skills ladder. This is not a new terminology. This thing already exists. In fact, it's called the skills tree classically. So this is not new things that I'm saying here, but this is put together in more of a simple way for people to understand, like you, who may not be fully aware of the entire situation in the digital industry. There's a bit of background to talk about to this first. In 2014, the UK Digital Skills Task Force, now that is a name for a steering group, they produced a State of the Sector report, and this is what they said. They said there was 4 types of people in the country, basically, and this can be passed down to pretty much any country around the world. We've got number 1, a digital muggle. We've got number 2, a digital citizen. We've got number 3, a digital worker. And number 4, a digital maker. A digital muggle is basically someone who knows nothing about technology. This is, in a typical society, this is the elderly, this is the disenfranchised people, this is sometimes poor people who don't have the internet, who don't have any kind of laptop computer. That is typically a digital muggle. These are the people who struggle the most in society because they really struggle to get a hands on any kind of technology. They may be requested by their council now to pay their council tax through the internet, but they don't even know how to do that. A digital citizen, number 2, is the people who may be expected to use technology in their job in kind of a minimal way. So these are the people who are maybe clocking in to their job with some kind of technology system. These are the kind of people that may be writing web content by logging into a web system, something like that. They're not using technology to their full advantage, and their job doesn't require it, but they're aware of technology to some extent. Number 3 is digital workers. Digital workers are the people whose job relies on technology. So these are people like bloggers, for example. These are people who use technology every day of their life to do something. So this is also people like YouTubers, and this is people who basically use technology all of their day whilst they're at work. And then number 4 is the digital makers. These are the people who are making the technology. These are the people who are making the content management systems for the workers to use. These are the digital agencies out there, basically. These are the people who are designing and building web apps, designing and building iPhone apps, designing and building websites. They are digital makers. They're the 4 categories broadly. Progressing people through this, so taking people from number 1 to number 2 to number 3, and number 3 to number 4, is how we upskill the entire society. We're very focused at the minute, particularly at government level, on taking people through digital skills who have already got some kind of skill there. But that kind of discounts a lot of society that have got no digital skills whatsoever. We need to also concentrate on the entire level. If we're solely concentrating on number 4, giving people digital skills to become digital makers, we are discounting the other 3/4 of society who will never make websites for a living, who will never make apps for a living, because it's too complicated for them and they also don't want to do it as a job. So we need to remember that there's other kind of people in society and not focus so much on just number 4, because that's how we upskill the entire society rather than just one area. There are current solutions out there trying to solve several levels of what we're experiencing. We've got the traditional education. This is a model we're all very familiar with already. They usually last from 1 to 5 years, sometimes last a bit longer than that, and they usually focus on teaching skills in some kind of module way, slowly progressing the student to a professional level of skill. This focus is usually to make you kind of work ready to find a job at the end of it, but it can sometimes be skewed to make students purchase more education. So you see this in college, specifically in the UK, when somebody maybe does A-levels or a sixth form kind of education, they're usually told to go to university, to the next level. Even if they don't need it, even if they don't want to do it, they're usually told that university is the next step. And that can often put a massive strain on the student, particularly with the amount of tuition fees now. They cost a lot of money. Typically a student comes out with about £30,000 to £40,000 of debt now after they've left university. So university isn't for everybody, but typically the education system, the traditional education system, is pushing everybody towards university. Then we've got the other kind of thing that's emerging in the UK. I've called these privately run boot camp style courses. They'll typically last between 8 and 12 weeks, and these are kind of accelerator courses that are designed to get somebody a job as quickly as possible in the shortest amount of time. And they usually end up focusing on one kind of skill. They'll focus on JavaScript or PHP or Node or something like that. They'll usually focus on a specific coding language. The focus from the very beginning to the very end is to get the person a job. And they do work. They definitely work. North Coders is an example, and this is a very local example. Local to Barnsley, by the way. There's other ones out there, but it's a good example to look at. And then we've also got online training. So these are the kind of things like Codecademy and Team Treehouse. You may or may not have seen them, but they're basically online training. It's e-learning. We're all very familiar with e-learning. And they're usually conducted at your own pace, so these could take anything from a couple of weeks to maybe a couple of years or even longer. A lot of these people who take online training usually don't end up getting a job in the sector because they're not focused enough. They haven't got a tutor, or they haven't got somebody forcing them through the education or helping them out when they get stuck. And they usually focus on, again, teaching one kind of skill, and they usually focus on video tutorials or quiz type knowledge. And it's usually to teach people a skill and not particularly get people a job. Finally, we've got workshops, and these can take a variety of formats, and they're very wide-ranging. These can be just to upskill people for a particular kind of skill, or they can be just to raise awareness or teach new skills or anything. These are very varied. In the UK specifically, Google has popped up something called Digital Garage. So there's lots of Google shops all around the UK now that they've called Digital Garage, where you can walk in and get skills on some very generic stuff. How to use your mobile phone, how to access the internet, things like that. But there's all kinds of variants of this. These are never really targeted at getting people jobs. They're just targeted at teaching individual skills to people who need them the most. Each one of these solutions has their own issues. And as I just outlined there, that's the problem with a lot of them. The major problem with most of them is that they're so disjointed. There's several different ways of doing these things, but they're all competitors, so they don't talk to each other. The university type education, the traditional education, never talks to private providers of digital education because they are direct competitors and they don't want to share knowledge that way, even though both sides could learn something from each other. The biggest problem with all of these solutions mainly is that there's a massive disconnect between what digital businesses need and what education needs. The education system relies very heavily on coming up with a digital curriculum that doesn't change very quickly. And then the digital businesses need very current and very up-to-date skills that only they can usually teach. And because the digital businesses are usually not willing to share their knowledge with education, that annoys education, and then education doesn't share any knowledge back with the digital business. And that usually ends up meaning that neither of those two people talk to each other and nothing really improves. And then digital businesses moan that education is not specific, and education moans that industry is not taking part in education. It's a very vicious cycle that's very difficult to get out of. And as I said, I've spent 8 years trying to change this, and it's hard. People don't want to help each other in this situation, and I don't really know the solution. The final thing to say on all of these is that all of these solutions tend to focus on one skill, and if there's something that a lot of digital organizations really want, it's they want people who are ready for a job in digital, but not necessarily specific skills. This could be called being agency ready. This could loosely be called being agency ready. So they're ready to work in an agency but not necessarily have specific skills, but they know how to learn things. Another major problem we have here, particularly locally in Barnsley because we're a small town, is aspirations. We have a lot of young people in our small little town that don't think they can do things. They don't know that they can do it because they're not aware of it. Their parents don't know that they can get a digital job. And digital jobs still seem to have this kind of strange reputation of risk and geekiness and being too complicated. And the wider public still doesn't understand the digital industry. They don't understand people who make websites. They don't understand how apps work. They don't understand how websites work generally. So there's a big problem with aspirations in small towns like ours. Because we're a traditional mining town, or at least we used to be. A lot of our workforce used to work in manufacturing and still do, and there's a lot of our workforce that used to work in very traditional labour, in kind of mines, down mines. Now none of that exists anymore. There is a huge gap, particularly with parents. There's a huge knowledge gap for understanding this kind of stuff, and it means that their children don't tend to understand this kind of stuff either. So when I go into a school and I tell them that you could do this, they don't believe they could do it because they don't understand it, and their parents don't understand it, and their teachers don't understand it, and it's very sad. People don't understand this guy. If you don't know who this guy is, this is PewDiePie. He is a guy on YouTube that has the most followers. He has the most subscribers on YouTube. When I originally did this video, he had 58 million subscribers. He's now got over 60 million subscribers on YouTube. It's estimated that he makes £1 to £3 million per year just from making YouTube videos, and that does not include endorsements, and it doesn't include selling other people's products or anything like that. That is purely the revenue he makes from YouTube. And people still don't understand this, particularly in Barnsley, particularly in small towns like ours. Teachers and older people and parents do not understand that this is a legitimate career, because they'll watch a video by PewDiePie and not understand it, and I wouldn't blame them, and then they don't get it, and they don't get how this guy is making so much money. All of this stuff is not just about skills for digital companies. PewDiePie is not a traditional digital company. He's not a company at all, in fact. He's a very different digital business that a lot of people do not understand. And it's not just about those kind of skills to make another web design company. There's lots of skills out there that need to be addressed. And it's about really digital skills for everybody, not just one small sector. Talking to people, writing and communicating, they're not traditional digital skills, but I continue to see this standard fall amongst our young people. As our young people come around for another generation, every generation that comes around that I see, they can't write as well as the last generation. They can't talk to other people as well as the last generation, and they can't communicate as well as the last generation. The standard is falling in a massive way for this particular set of skills. So what specific digital skills are important to digital businesses? I spent a lot of time working with Barnsley College and Wakefield College on this stuff, and we came to a big point, and the number one point is this: any skill can be learned by people who know how to learn. As digital skills and digital industry and technology advance and change so much, we've got to make sure that the people who we're producing in education know how to learn new things. The knowledge that they're going to learn, no matter how current it is on their course, will not be the end of their knowledge, and they're going to have to learn new stuff. So we need to teach students on how to learn and not just what to learn. We came to another revelation. Number 2, teaching people to learn is more important than teaching people the skills. So we need to make a massive focus in education on not just teaching people knowledge, because this is a very current crisis in education in the UK. We're teaching people knowledge, and we're teaching people to pass exams. We tell people directly what they need to do to pass their exams, but we're not telling them the skills to learn what they need to learn in their future careers. Number 3, the skills are changing every single month, so number 1 and 2 are really important. We need to focus on teaching people to learn, and particularly in small towns like Barnsley, we need to remind people that they can do these careers and that there's lots of jobs out there, and those jobs are changing every single day. And just as I've done this talk right now, there's more jobs out there that are being generated right now. And we need to raise the aspirations of young people and turn people into self-starters and turn people into creative people, because there's endless and boundless opportunities out there right now for young people. And not just young people as well, old people too. There's lots of opportunities to just take a camera and stick what you've done on YouTube, and that could potentially reach an audience of millions, and you could generate an entire new career like that. We need to focus more on showing people the potential of the web and the potential of digital. So how do we go about doing this? As a final couple of slides, we need to build awareness, build aspirations, inspire people, and pull everybody together. The good thing about this is, particularly locally, we're doing some of this already, but I also had an idea, along with some of the education people I've been speaking to do something that I've loosely called a careers taster day. So the idea of this day is that we would bring as many people as possible from the digital industry into one room to showcase what they can do. So we show people, just people from high school and people, young people and old people, we show people the wide variety of digital jobs and potential job opportunities in the digital sector. And by bringing all those people into a room, we can actually let these people have a go at some of these careers. We can let people make a website. We can let people make an app. We can let people record a video and upload it to YouTube. And by doing that, we raise aspirations and we show that to these young people and old people that they could potentially do this as a career. And then once we've done that, and once they start to get a feel of what they want to do, we can signpost them to what they need to do next. For some people, that might be university, and for some people, that might be going away and learning it all online. There's no one way to do this. It could be potentially very different ways for very different people. And then most importantly, we show that education and industry and everybody else can actually work together to get stuff done and to improve the current digital skills crisis that we're experiencing in our town. There's lots of questions that we still need to answer. This is not a finished solution, and these are some of the questions off the top of my head that I think are still important that we need to look at. When we did this in the room in Barnsley, I got lots of great feedback and lots of people was coming to me and asking and answering these questions. But for this today, I'm just going to leave them on the screen. I'm going to talk about them briefly and then let you go away and think about them. So what skills and jobs would we show people in a digital taster day? What format should that day take? Who do we invite? So that's particularly what kind of age range do we invite? Do we invite everybody? Do we invite young people? Or do we have one event for young people, one event for maybe 20 to 30s, and one event for over 40s? Do we have different events also for different groups of people? Not just age ranges, but different areas and different skills interests and things like that. And also, we need to raise aspirations, as I've said many times, and we need to make more people aware, but do it in a fun way. And then the final question is obviously, how do we do all that? I'd love to hear your ideas on how we achieve this, because there's so much potential in just this Taster Day idea, but there's so much better potential out there to teach people, young people, old people, and middle-aged people, the potential of the digital industry. We're not doing a good job of it right now in education or in the private sector, and we definitely need to improve it. That's all I've really got to say. Thank you so much for patiently listening to this. If you want to give me any feedback, you can find me on Twitter at Craig Burgess, as I said at the very beginning, just at Craig Burgess. And you can also just email me, and I haven't got a final slide here because I was ill prepared for this bit. Thank you so much for patiently listening, and I'll catch up with you soon.